oppressed or utility provider, but a world in which we take back our power, a world where we do not have to fear where our power is cut off and people are left devastated because of what happens during hurricanes. God, we pray tonight that you would give us new understanding, that we would be educated so that we are duly equipped to be able to fight against unjust treatment from this utility. And so, oh God, now we ask that you would give us ears that listen and hearts that are willing to be educated. I ask in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, everybody. Just a second. Let me fix this here. Um,
Rev, you're muted. Still muted.
Unmute Pastor Manny.
now,
Yes.
oh. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you're good.
Just a few housekeeping issues. Know that the chat feature with on this platform, we would like to ask that you would use that in order that you can network with people. For instance, if you do not know where to contact them or have their contact information, you can request that by way of using the chat feature. Other than that, we ask you would please keep what we call sidebar conversations at a minimum so that it does not distract from the main presentation of our guest panelists tonight. Also, just a word about Justice and Beyond. Justice and Beyond is, as many of you know, a coalition that has been organizing together for nearly 9 years. We took a hiatus for about 6 months as we regrouped and reorganized about 2 years ago. And during that hiatus, we made it clear that we wanted to make sure that we were a coalition that was driven by the members and not just one or two people. This happened after the stepping down of Reverend Dr. Dwight Webster and Pat Bryant, the co-founders of Justice and Beyond. And then we established that we would be led by what we call our pillar system. Pillars are organizations that have signed on the line to be a part of the vision casting and the governance of Justice and Beyond. Justice and Beyond is dedicated to lifting up the voices of brown and black people. And we are focusing on 4 different areas. Those areas are education, economic development, health and environment, and also housing. And so as we focus upon those areas, we want to bring together interested groups that want to help in those areas. So if you want to be a pillar beyond, please let us know. Let one of our other pillars know. Let myself know, our other co-moderators, Sylvia McKenzie, and our youth moderator, Trevor David Bryant II, and Myron Miller, who's also a co-moderator. And so with that being said, with no further ado, we're excited about this presentation tonight. And I want to welcome Miss Anitra Brown. And Anitra, if you would just give us just some little information about yourself and about your work before you begin with welcoming your other guest panelists. Anitra, are you muted? Anitra, are you there?
And now I'm not muted. Okay.
Okay, great. Welcome, Anitra.
So I am the editor of the New Orleans Tribune, and I've been so since 2004, despite a brief hiatus in 2006 until about 2011, post-Katrina. I am from the New Orleans metropolitan area, and I am a graduate of Dillard University and the University of Missouri Columbia. I always wanted to use my expertise and skill and the things that I wanted to do in journalism with the Black press. And so after several years of teaching and working in mainstream media, I was afforded the opportunity to get back to my first love, which was actually working in the Black press. And so since 2004, I've been with the New Orleans Tribune. I hope that's enough about me.
Anitra, can you hear me?
Yes,
All
did
right,
you guys hear me?
that was fantastic. Thank you so much. The floor is yours now, Anitra. Please ask your guest panelists maybe to introduce themselves, and then you take it away the way you see fit.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, the way I kind of saw the Runner Show going, is that I am going to, first of all, I absolutely am excited and privileged to host tonight's forum. I believe what we have is we have 4 great guests to speak on this topic: Jesse George, Jamila Peters Muhammad, Deborah Campbell, and Sophie Zakin. And what I was hoping to do was give a brief introduction of each of them, just really brief, and then open the floor to them to spend about 10 or 15 minutes speaking about their work surrounding energy and those issues. And then we'll come back with, any questions that I have a few questions, and then any questions from participants in tonight's forum. So we'll start with Jesse George, who is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of South Louisiana, grew up in the fossil fuel and petrochemical corridor, which kind of put him as a witness of the degradation and destruction that these industries have wrought on our communities, particularly fence line communities. While attending Tulane Law School, he was a member of the Environmental Law Society, a student practitioner in the Tulane Environmental Law Clinic, and upon graduation, he received a certificate in environmental law. Following the 2010 BP oil spill, he accepted a position with the Pro Bono Project, handling all spill claims for indigent clients. Today, he speaks to us from his position as the New Orleans Policy Director for Alliance for Affordable Energy. And tonight, he will be assisting us by deconstructing our energy bills and alerting us to some changes that are looming ahead. So, Jesse?
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. I'm very pleased to be here. This is, such an important issue. And I'm happy to do a little breakdown this evening of your Entergy bill and what actually goes into that bill and what you're paying for, and maybe give some ideas of how we could change that structure a little bit. So if I have a little presentation, I don't think I have the ability currently to share my screen. Is it possible for someone to grant me that privilege?
Brooke, are you able to do that? Jesse, can you hear me?
I can.
Right, I don't know. Sylvia, maybe, are you able to do that?
Yeah, she's trying. Ms. Brooke
I'm
is
doing
trying.
it.
Okay.
Ah,
I think if you make me a co-host, maybe.
that's what I think I'm gonna do. Then you'll get a chance to do it. There you go.
Great. Right. Share screen. There we go. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
Let's see. If I can get it to play. There we go. Okay, so bill rundown, how to read your Entergy bill. So we'll just dive right into it. This is taken directly from the Entergy New Orleans website. So if you go to that website, you'll see the same infographic. I'm going to go down number by number through each of these elements of the bill. And I'll provide a little more information than what's provided here and give you some more context on what all of this actually is. So if we look at number one, the top portion of the bill here, that's very straightforward. That's your account number, your name, that sort of information, the date that the bill was mailed to you, that sort of information. If you look at number 2, the circle with the 2 in it, that is the total amount of your bill for the current month. And it shows just below that the time that that payment is due. If you look at number 3, this is an energy usage graph. So you see 2 bar graphs there next to number 3. The top bar graph shows your electricity usage. So you see that's measured in kilowatt hours. The graph below that shows your gas usage. So if you have gas service at your home, that will show the amount of gas you're using by volume of natural gas that you're using. And you'll see this bill, this sample bill is for the month of February. So you'll see on both of those graphs, there's a comparison from the current year versus usage from the same month in the previous year. So you can look at what your usage is compared to the same time last year. Moving on, you'll see number 4 is a ring graph. That's just another way of displaying or expressing what goes into that total figure that your bill amounts to. So you'll see the bulk of that, over half of it, it appears, is electric charges. Another substantial portion is gas charges. And then you see a small portion that's other charges and credits. We won't get into 6 and 7. Those are just kind of informational portions of the bill. They tell you how different ways that you can pay, that sort of thing. It's pretty self-explanatory. The final portion on this page would be number 8, which is the section of your bill that you would need to mail in with your payment if you're paying by mail. So you would detach that portion from your bill and then mail it along with your check or money order or however you pay. So moving on, this is really the more substantial portion of the bill and provides you with a lot more information. So you see number 9 is information about your meter reading. So this tells you the date and time that your meter is being read. They are supposed to do this roughly the same time each month. And so you can keep track of that by taking a look at that portion of your bill. And you see, again, it's divided into between the electric meter and the gas meter. So when we get down to number 10, you see your account detail. That will show you your previous bill balance and whatever payment was received for the last billing cycle, and then the remaining balance left over. Now we get into the real interesting part of the bill, number 11, which is the actual breakdown of all of the charges that go into your bill. So you'll see under electric charges, the top line item there is the electric base rate charge. And you'll see that on the electric portion of the bill, that makes up the bulk of the bill. That electric base rate charge is calculated by taking into account the company's overall investment and operating expenses. And it also factors in a rate of return on that capital investment for the utility. So that full rate gets then allocated between customer classes. So it gets divided up between industrial users, large commercial users, small commercial users, and residential users. And so that portion of your residential bill, that rate gets applied to whatever your usage is for the month, and that's how you get that electric base rate charge. Now, what I would stress to you on this portion of the bill, and what I would ask you to take away from this, is that this portion of your bill is the portion that the city council in our city, as the regulator of Entergy New Orleans, has an enormous amount of control over. So, as I said, This base rate charge factors in all of the capital investments that Entergy makes in order to actually provide electric service to you. So all of the lines, poles, generating units, the salaries of their employees, all of that stuff gets factored in. But importantly, in utility regulation, only those investments of the utility that are made prudently or wisely are allowed to be included in that base rate. And this is where the city council has an enormous amount of authority, because they get to decide if those investments are prudent or not. So they get to decide whether those capital costs get folded into that base rate and get applied to your bill. And so when it comes to, making decisions about how we're going to deliver electricity, what kinds of investments we're going to make, this is where the city council has to step in as regulator and determine whether those investments are prudent or not. Moving down, you'll see below that is the New Orleans Power Station interim adjustment. So y'all have probably heard of the New Orleans Power Station. It got a lot of press in the wake of Hurricane Ida. It's also referred to as NOPS. It's the major
Come on.
It's a natural gas power plant that was built out in New Orleans East a few years ago. I'm sure you remember the story. It was hugely unpopular at the time. Entergy actually paid actors to attend city council meetings to get this approved, which despite this astroturfing campaign on their part, it was approved and built. And it was sold to the council largely on its ability to black start, or to be able to start up in the event of a catastrophic power outage on its own. And then in the wake of Ida, we saw that it sat dark for several days, and that in fact, Entergy had to restore transmission from the North Shore from Slidell before they could fire up that power plant safely. And so when it comes to, again, making prudence determinations about what kinds of investments should be allowed to be charged to ratepayers, this is the job of the city council. And because the city council approved that power plant, they elected, instead of folding it into base rates, they elected to include it as a rider, a single line item on the bill. And so that line item is the amount of money that we're paying to pay for that power plant. And so again, at the time that this power plant was constructed and approved, the Alliance for Affordable Energy and our partners in the Energy Future New Orleans Coalition argued that Entergy should be instead investing in transmission capability and in distributed local resources like rooftop solar and battery backup systems that would provide true resilience in the event of a catastrophic outage. And of course, Entergy got its way, and we saw what happened in the wake of Ida. This plant did not perform as promised, and yet here it is on our bills, and we're paying for it each month. So moving down, the next line item you see there is purchase power cost recovery. So this is money that is recovered for purchase power agreements between Entergy and what are called independent power producers. So any of the power that Entergy is not producing itself through its own generation units, it has to procure from other places. And so this is the line item that recovers that money that they spend on those contracts. Below that, you see the fuel and purchase power cost. And you see next to that, the kilowatt hours for the month, 1,213 kilowatt hours at that rate of 0.015603 cents. And so what that is the actual cost of fuel. So that base rate charge that we talked about earlier at the top line item there on the breakdown, that's just the actual tangible assets that go into providing you power. Like I said, the poles, the lines, the trucks, the power plants, etc. This fuel and purchase power cost is the cost of the actual fuel. So that all of that, of course, gets passed through.
Bring a chair. I can't hear. I'm gonna go at home and listen to it.
Hold on, pause for a minute, Jesse. I'm so sorry. If I could have everybody please mute your phone Please take care to see if your phone is not muted, and go ahead and mute that at this time. And Sylvia and Brooke, if you could help out with that too, I'd appreciate it. Continue, Jesse. Thanks.
So this is one of the areas of your bill where you can see how your usage actually affects your bill, because the amount of kilowatt hours you use times that fuel rate is what you're going to pay for those fuel costs. So the less you use, the less you're going to pay for fuel costs. But you only have so much control over that, because as we know, the housing stock in New Orleans is very leaky when it comes to energy. Our housing stock is not very energy efficient, and we have a lot of room for improvement in that area. So even if you are, keeping your thermostat down and are trying to cut back on your usage, there's only so much you can do as an individual consumer. There is a lot more that can be done by system-wide improvements and widespread energy efficiency programs, which we'll get into in just a minute. What I would point out, though, is that the way that we generate our electricity is important for those fuel costs, because when we build things like natural gas-fired power plants, we're paying for that natural gas that's being burned to generate electricity. So even if you don't have gas service at your home, you're still paying for the cost of natural gas, because that's what's being burned in these power plants to generate electricity for your home. So, when it comes to things like solar and renewable or wind energy, which are renewable resources, that don't have any fuel costs because sunlight is free, the wind is free. So when we generate our power using those sources, we're not paying fuel costs. So that's a way that we can reduce our bills. Moving down, the last item on the electric side is the Energy Efficiency EECR rider. So you may have heard of the Energy Smart program. This is an energy efficiency and weatherization program that was developed by the City Council, and that's administered by Entergy. And this rider on your bill is the cost of that program. And so we all pay a small portion of that. Even if you are not directly participating in that program, energy efficiency across the system benefits everybody, because the lower demand on the entire system, that means the lower our rates will be. And so energy efficiency benefits you whether you're actually receiving the weatherization on your home or not. And if you're interested in pursuing that program, we can provide you with more information on that. Of course, we're always looking to bolster that program, to make it more expansive and robust. And, again, this is up to the City Council to make those decisions. Going down to the gas side, again, you see the gas base rate charge. Just like the electric side, this is all the infrastructure and cost that goes into actually delivering gas to your home. And then you see the purchased gas costs. And that shows you the volume of gas that you're using times the cost of that gas. And that's how you calculate that figure. So I would just say, again, natural gas is about double the price it was at this time last year. And natural gas markets are very volatile. This leads to a lot of unpredictability in people's bills versus, energy efficiency and renewable energy, which, like I said, has no fuel cost. Finally, moving down to the other charges and credits, we see the storm securitization cost rider. So every time we have one of these major named storms like, Ida or Zeta last year, or Katrina many years ago, and all the storms in between, Entergy comes and applies to recover the amount of money that it spends on all of those storm recoveries. And so that rider recovers those funds. So what I would say here is that as long as we continue to prop up the same old system, these storms are not going away. In fact, they're becoming more intense and more frequent. And so, it's a good time to start looking at whether we want to continue to just invest in the same system over and over again and keep rebuilding it over and over again. I think someone said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, When we talk about, these storm securitization riders, there are ways that we can minimize the impacts to our bills by smarter planning. And namely, I'm talking about local distributed resources like rooftop solar. But below that, you see the MISO recovery rider. So MISO stands for Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. They are what is called a regional transmission operator. And Entergy New Orleans is a member organization of MISO. And so we pay a fee to MISO to be a member organization. And actually, Entergy was ordered by the Department of Justice to become a member of MISO because of the reliability issues that ratepayers in New Orleans have experienced for so long. The goal, or the role rather, of a regional transmission operator like MISO is basically a traffic control operator on the transmission grid. So they manage the transmission grid basically from Louisiana all the way up to Minnesota through the middle part of the country. And they try to keep the traffic flowing, and they keep power flowing where it needs to go. And so we've actually saved tens of millions of dollars as a result of being a member of MISO, because they help us to manage the transmission system. Below that, you see the street use franchise fee. You actually see two of those, and the reason there are two is because we have both the electric side and the gas side. And what that is the fee that Entergy pays to the city for the use of its right-of-way, a right-of-way for lines, for gas pipelines under the roads. They pay a fee to the city, and that gets passed on to you, the ratepayer. And then finally, you see below that city sales tax, which is, just as it says, city sales tax. And that is really the breakdown of the bill. Beyond that, I would like to let you know that the New Orleans Municipal Code includes a ratepayer's Bill of Rights that is law in the city. So you have rights as a ratepayer, and it provides a process for you to dispute your bill. It requires you to first file an informal complaint with Entergy. Once that process is completed, if you're dissatisfied with the result, you can then file a formal complaint with the Council Utility Regulatory Office, or CURO. They have forms available in their office that you can fill out. A complaint officer will be assigned to the case, and they will adjudicate the case to a resolution. So that is available to you should you, need it. If you look at your bill and you think, that's not right, there's no way I use that much electricity or gas, you do have this process available to you. And finally, I'd just like to let you know about the LIHEAP program, which is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. This is a federal program that provides federal dollars to states for energy assistance for residential ratepayers. In New Orleans, that program is administered by Total Community Action, and you see the link there. So that allows you to receive up to $600 per year for bill assistance. So it is based on your total household income, but if you do need assistance, please feel free to visit that website and fill out an application, and they can assist you in that way. And that's all I have for you this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have later on during the Q&A portion.
Back to you, Anitra.
Thank you, Jesse. That was a very informative presentation. We do have some questions we'll reserve for later. Now we are on to Jamila Peters Muhammad. And as a nurse, Jamila Peters Muhammad is a beacon of health at the junction of faith, community, and culture. As the Wellness Outreach Director of the New Orleans Musicians Clinic and Assistance Foundation. Jamila was a founding team member of the Orleans Parish Equity in All Places team, which produced a groundbreaking study on the impact of zip codes on New Orleans' life expectancy. Rooted in science and empowered by faith, Mama Jamila serves as the leader of Christian Unity Baptist Church Health Ministry, a member of the Congregational Wellness, and is a health and wellness consultant for Ashe Cultural Center. Tonight, she is going to help us get a better understanding of how energy insecurity impacts disparity in our most vulnerable communities. Jamila.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you for continually crying out for the needs of our community. As we know, this is just another point on that whole needle of insecurities that our disenfranchised communities have to deal with every day. But today I'm going to specifically talk about people you may know. You see them, you go to their shows, you love listening to their music and dancing to the songs and the tunes that they play. But at what cost do they have to come through to bring you that joy that you feel? As you know, for most of our culture bearers, New Orleans is more or less a gig economy. It means you're paid when you work. We all know what has happened here in the world over the past 2 years almost. But the insecurities around energy, food, medicine did not start then.
Right.
It was exacerbated by those things. And anything that tips the balance, one change throws someone that may already be walking on the corner, on the edge, into a state of emergency. Those same musicians and artists that you see every day, many of them are not bringing home more than $50 a gig. They got a few big names, but most of us don't live there. New Orleans is based on tourism. It is based on tourism that is undergirded by our cultural community. But the monies don't come to that cultural communities. So I want to give you a couple of stories. And these are individuals without names, but we all know their faces. This past year, NOMAF, and I will refer to our organization as NOMAF, New Orleans Musicians Assistance Foundation. New Orleans Musicians Assistance Foundation was founded just to do that. We realized that most of us are living on the edge. And how then could we help to keep the beat alive? So that's the Assistance Foundation. So these are just some of the stories. This year so far, NOMAF have spent approximately $17,000, let's go back, $765. That's a huge chunk for a nonprofit. Think of the health benefits we could have given to our culture bearers had we been able to help them with medication, better diet. Think of the help we could have given them, but instead that money had to go to Entergy to keep their lights on, to keep gas on. We work on an emergency basis, and people will send us emergency requests. I'm going to read to you a couple of stories. This one is from a 45-year-old trumpet player. He's a recorded songwriter and band leader, while also supporting a family of 4 children. We already know. He's been a patient at our musicians clinic for more than 15 years. He currently manages, and we're talking about a 45-year-old, you all. He currently manages diabetes, hypertension, nerve issues due to his middle finger trigger. Now you have to realize for a 45-year-old, these diseases, for many of us, don't manifest until after 50, 65 and older. But another point to bring in is the fact that many of our musicians, in another story, that gig economy also doesn't lend itself to the best health practices. You're eating odd hours. Burger King can give it to you your way. The stress, the constant stress of using those fingers, that's the middle finger trigger and the nerve damage. So he's been outpatient, as I said, for 15 years. He's having difficulty meeting child support payments, which means that all of the stimulus money that he might have gotten went toward that child support. God bless the child. But what about the father? What does he deserve to help him to manage through this lifetime? He presently has a court appearance later this month to decrease his payments. He has an upcoming surgery. He's been awaiting FEMA assistance. He has a black tarp on his house right now. He's only had a little assistance for a generator. He's been compliant, adherent, trying to do better with his health care. What do you think this is going to do? Because we all know what stress does to diabetes and hypertension. So we put him then at a higher risk for having more complicated health issues. He's been taking his medications. Can he afford to continue to do that? He was doing so well that he was able to get off insulin. That's a major feat. Will he have to go back? We don't know. He also has severe joint pain, degenerative cervical spinal stenosis. So he's unable to pursue another job. I can only imagine the difficulty he has just being on stage, holding that trumpet and still playing to make us happy. He had a disconnect notice, and we paid $543 to keep his lights on. To keep his lights on, what happens next month? Because it's not like this is a yearly bill. What happens next month? We have another request that was submitted for our emergency from a 72-year-old harmonica player, guitarist and percussionist. Well known for his jazz band. He's been playing local gigs since the 60s. He's been a patient with us for more than 10 years. He's being treated for back pain, arthritis, and carpal tunnel syndrome. You hear a common thread here with the nerve damage from the constant use of certain joints, bones, the arthritis, the different things. You don't know what a musician has to go through to give us the joy that we have. But this is not uncommon to find our culture bearers with these arthritic and nerve conditions after years of overuse of their joints and bones. As an elder, he's at risk for contracting COVID and with potentially dangerous symptoms. He was displaced from his living situation at the beginning of the pandemic and had received no other relief or aid. He has since lost his Medicaid coverage. Yes, you can lose Medicaid even if you don't have money. So another risk factor for him. He's not received any relief or any aid since then. He's had to supplement his health care with deductions from his Social Security due to a loss of income. No gigs for 2 years. That's how I make my living. This is what supports me, but there are no gigs. And many of our musicians are going back to work, even when it's dangerous, because this is how I live. I can't pay an energy bill if I don't work. His request was for $394 to cover a disconnect notice. Again, what happens next month? Because it doesn't go away. Another patient of ours, this is a couple with 4 kids. They've been our patients for quite a while. Their son, who was 38 years old, died in December due to stomach cancer. He was also a musician. There was a benefit fundraiser for them, but with unexpected costs still pending on this family. They're struggling financially due to inability to receive disability or unemployment. She's been trying to appeal for disability for over a year. They're behind right now 3 months on a utility bill. And we all know what has happened to property taxes. Again, we got another evening for this. So while they're behind, he is also a cancer survivor, and they take care of the 4 grandchildren. They too have a disconnect notice, $563.73 from our emergency fund. As you can see, and we have many other stories. Personally, I have too been affected by Entergy crisis. I remember dark one morning on my way to have surgery with multiple chronic health conditions, dancing my little heart out and smiling. On my way to the hospital, I'm calling Entergy because I had gotten a disconnect notice. Am I coming home to darkness? I too took care of my grandchildren. Are they going to be in darkness while I'm gone? Fortunately, I had signed up for Entergy's levelized billing and found out I had enough in my levelized account to cover, because I wasn't eligible at that time to get them to stop the disconnect. But because I had enough funds in my levelized account, my bill was paid. But suppose I didn't have that. Suppose I didn't have that. Do I come home from surgery in the darkness? These are the things that our New Orleans culture bearers are dealing with every day. And it becomes a choice of, do I pay the light bill? Do I pay the rent? Do I pay the water bill? Do I buy food? Do I pay property taxes? I only have this much, but I have this much, including energy that has to be paid.
Yeah.
Tough decisions that we have to make every day.
Mhm.
So we have so many more stories. Another 60-year-old, $360 emergency request. 39-year-old actor, band leader, $480. Of course, as our culture bearers get older, the impact is harder. But we're talking about a 39-year-old, 48-year-old. It does not have a cutoff. It does not have, oh, you're too young or you're too old. Entergy and the high rates that we pay in this city affects all of us. Our culture bearers live on the edge often. And Entergy is one of the factors that's putting them there.
Absolutely.
I hope this gives you a brief overview of what our culture bearers are dealing with. I'll be around to answer any questions that you may have and further insight into what's happening with our culture bearers in this time of energy crisis. Thank you so much for this platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mama Jamila. And if I could just add another layer to that, so that people understand what energy insecurity is. You provided some great snapshots, but it, how close it really can hit to home, as you talked about. It's when you face any challenge with cooling, heating, or cooking your home, right? And paying bills. And moderately energy insecure, if you've ever received one disconnection notice in a 12-month period. So I want people to stop and think about that. Have you ever gotten a disconnection notice? You're energy insecure. Severely energy insecure, Have you ever spent one 24-hour period with that utility actually turned off? Stop and think about that. People that, has it happened to you or people that you know? That is how close so many in our community are to what we call energy insecurity. 4.8 million Americans into 2020 last year were unable to pay at least one energy bill, and 1 out of 3 Americans face some kind of struggle with utilities. So that's how close and how real that energy insecurity is. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on now to Ms. Deborah Campbell, a native New Orleans from the 7th Ward who has been an officer of a community voice affiliated with Acorn since 2005 and is a leader of the Upper 9th Ward chapter and a statewide leader, as well as a board chairperson. She currently chairs the weekly general membership conference calls of a community voice that engages an average of 100 members per meeting with elected officials and candidates to further the aims of grassroots issues for low to moderate income membership. Many of the members are so committed to the group that they met on Thanksgiving evening, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and even when the power was out, with callers in their phones, in their vehicles to keep their phones charged for the call. This year, the group has interviewed over 30 candidates for office regarding their commitments to policies surrounding energy, sewage and water board, lead pipes, environmental justice, and other issues. And she's going to talk to us about, again, some of those issues surrounding energy insecurity and vulnerable communities. Thank you so much, Ms. Campbell.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Education is the key. We need to educate our community about what's going on. Our people are easy to say, that's okay, I'll find it, I'll pay it. At what cost? That's the problem. How do high energy bills affect residents? While it is so difficult for poor and working families to actually pay their high energy bills, a study shows that having high utility bills will actually drive a family into poverty. Let me say that again. It is so difficult for poor and working families to actually pay their high energy bills. But a nationwide study by the University of Wisconsin shows that just having high utility bills will actually drive a family into poverty. This study shows that energy burden for folks who have high utility bills and can't afford them were at about 150% to 200% greater risk of transitioning into or extending the duration of economic poverty over a 2-year time frame relative to people who can afford the bills. Twice as likely to become impoverished is way too much. Then the impact has multiplier effects on the households. When our folks pay inordinate amounts of income to energy services, it can actually threaten a household's economic well-being over time. It can possibly prevent folks from engaging in other economic activities that could help them in short and long run. For instance, not taking out a payday loan. Save towards a down payment for a house that would reduce their monthly payment from the higher rental amounts and create equity in a home. Unhomed, moving in with relatives or worse. Reduce spending on medication, food, or other necessities to cool and heat the home, or cause them to fall behind on their utility bills and consequently have their credit ratings affected. Also, they can get cut off and have to pay a penalty to get their utilities restored. A Community Voice members have come up with a solution that is both for disaster as well as could help reduce the monthly energy payment by just having a program to gift solar generators to poor, elderly, and working folks. Then we also propose a rate structure that would reduce rates to poor, elderly, disabled, working poor folks based on offsetting the discounts that's given to big commercial users and industry. Not only can these big businesses pay a higher rate, all of it is tax deductible, as all business expenses are deductible, just not for us. Then these industries should pay increase because they are wearing out our systems and they are causing new, terrible, dirty industries like the gas-powered plant in New Orleans East Wetlands, and we should not have to pay for that, but they can. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Campbell. And we're gonna move on to Sophie Zakin, who is the Administrative Program Director for Alliance, for the, I'm sorry, y'all, Alliance for Energy for All.
Nope. The Alliance for Affordable Energy.
The Alliance for Affordable Energy, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So we're pleased to welcome you back. Sophie is a biologist whose passions are human, environmental, and animal rights. She was raised fighting for social and environmental equity through the multicultural lens of her Jewish American mother and her Kurdish or Israeli immigrant father. Originally from the Bronx, New York, she fell in love with New Orleans while studying environmental science and international development and philosophy at Tulane University. She has worked while at the Alliance for Affordable Energy. Has worked, her work has included the NOLA Renewable Portfolio Standard, Gulf South for Green New Deal, USCAN's Vision for Equitable Climate Action, and Air Monitoring Initiative along Death Valley. And tonight, she is going to share with us some tools that energy consumers can use to kind of control their usage of energy, correct? Am I right about that? To have more control over their energy use.
Well, so I can definitely, thank you so much for that introduction, Anitra. I can definitely go over a bit about what can help you reduce energy, but nothing would be as useful as simply engaging with the Energy Smart program.
Okay.
And then I'd like to answer questions because I see we've had lots of questions in the chat.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the Energy Smart program.
Okay. So hello again, everyone. Great to be here. I've been a member of Justice and Beyond for many years, back in the Cafe Istanbul days, and then before that, in the church. I forget which the name of the church is, but anyway, thanks for having me back. Miss everyone. So yeah. So as Jesse was saying and going over the bill, a lot of the costs are kind of hidden. And not necessarily completely up to your energy use, whether you have gas or electricity. But there is a really good program that we helped establish with City Council and Entergy New Orleans. It's called the Energy Smart program. And this is a free program where you call the number, you can look them up online, but it's Energy Smart. And I'll put the link in the chat as well in a couple minutes. But you call them and they come to your house for free. They give you energy efficient light bulbs. So if you don't have LED or even CFL light bulbs, if you're using like old fashioned incandescent bulbs, you can actually end up saving a lot of money, especially in the long run, with simple upgrades like those light bulbs. But they also can look through your home to tell you what other upgrades that you would be eligible for, whether it's insulation, weatherization. They really can help you get a better idea of how you can save money.
Gotcha. And so that's a program, the Energy Smart program is with, through the Energy and City Council. But if these were, are there income limits with that program?
So anyone that is an Entergy New Orleans customer can participate in it. It's free for everyone. There are different rebate levels. For example, 200 residents of New Orleans a year that qualify, that are income qualified, get full weatherization of their home. And so that's, the weather stripping around the windows, maybe the floors. It could include insulation in the walls underneath the house. And that's those kind of upgrades that can really save you money, because while light bulbs can definitely save you money, the more that you're doing to not have to use more energy, the more money you'll save. So if you can keep all of the heat that you're producing during the winter within your house and not leaking out of the floorboards like in mine, you'll end up saving more. And so it's not a program, and I want to say, like, this is not a program that Entergy put forward. Like, this is from the citizens of New Orleans that we asked for, and City Council answered and said, yes, and Entergy does have to do this. And so here, I'll put the link in the chat. And so again, if you are low income or multifamily household, you can qualify for more rebates and more savings.
Gotcha. So I want to thank you, Sophie. I want to thank all of our presenters tonight. And I know that there were some questions that came through during the presentations. I don't exactly have access to them. So if someone who does may have some of those questions available. If not, I have a couple I'd like to ask, but I definitely want to make sure that those people who are participating, who were watching, can get their questions answered.
Can you hear me, Anitra?
I can hear you.
All right, very good. So the way we're going to go about this is that Sylvia McKenzie, our co-moderator, has been keeping track of the questions. And so we're just going to bounce those out, Anitra, and see which one of the panelists want to answer them. And so the way we're going to take those, and we're going to read the questions that are in the chat. And if you have a question that did not get printed in the chat, you can use the reaction button on the bottom of this platform to be able to show that you have a question, and we'll get that answered for you. So, Sylvia, what is the first question?
The first one is Mr. Ben. He has his hand up.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, I came here in 1982, and I met Gary Gresham. I was working with a lot of peace activists then, but I did some work with Gary Gresham. Back then it was NOPSI. Now I always thought NOPSI was a public utility, but it isn't. It was a privately run utility. But in general, I guess I would direct this towards Sophie, but any of the other panelists who can answer. Do you think back in the NOPSI days, there was a short time when there was a fight to get NOPSI back? Do you think they had problems back then, but overall, comparing it to what we have right now, do you think NOPSI was better back then?
Yeah, I'll definitely answer that, and then also maybe Jesse might want to jump in. Honestly, Ben, I think that what we deserve is something that's better than what we have now, and that's better than what NOPSI was. I think that the system that the New Orleans citizens really need and deserve is an equitable system that does not earn interest and payoffs for shareholders and stockholders for a company that is not even in this city or state. There were certain times that elected officials were held more accountable. And I think that's what makes a big difference in terms of the regulation of any utility. Because what it comes down to is as Jesse has said, like our elected officials have full control to tell Entergy how much they can make on the return of equity, which is the profits that they make on building things and charging people for energy. The system is itself designed so that Entergy is incentivized to charge people more for electricity and build things that cost more because they make more money on that. And so while the system is designed in that fashion, and Entergy is incentivized to have us spending more money in order for them to make more money, we're never going to see a truly equitable system, or one that's even providing, unfortunately, reliable energy, just because of what we've seen Entergy is able to get away with.
All right, thank you, Sophie. We're going to move on to, excuse me, to the next question. Sylvia, please.
This one is from Mr. Dennis Knowles. Do you want me to, you want to ask it, Mr. Dennis?
Yep, I
Okay.
want to make statements. The statements are that even though you read the bill, Jesse, nobody could really understand it. It was not really clear cut. You can sense an extortion and robbery in that bill. The system itself, when it comes to, you're telling us that gasoline or gas operates the whole plant that powers the energy, and people who don't use gas still pay a gas bill, is extortion and robbery. You say that is somebody else talking?
No, go ahead, Mr. Dennis.
Okay, you say that residents also pay their cost based on billing to the industry. In my opinion, the industry that filters the cost down, it's a top-down payment that goes to the residents who get extorted by industry. This whole system seems to be an incorporation of extortion to gentrify and genocide masses of people. We have a very deep problem with this. Very serious problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Any of our panelists want to respond to that?
I'll take a shot. I'll just say I appreciate where you're coming from, Mr. Dennis. I know that, I did my best trying to break that bill down, and I know it's still not very transparent what goes into it. What I would emphasize is just what Sophie emphasized just now, which is, as we said before, the enormous authority that our city council has over these decisions. And it's up to us as the electorate to hold them accountable, and that's what the Alliance has been doing since 1985 essentially, and it's an uphill battle. We're up against a well-funded and well-resourced opposition, but I totally agree with you, in terms of the way that residential ratepayers are taken advantage of. The way that those costs are allocated across different customer classes between industrial and commercial and residential classes, all that gets fought out in rate cases that get filed periodically. But I'll tell you that from the utility perspective, they much prefer industrial customers over residential customers, because for the utility, they see an industrial customer as a constant user of electricity. They know that they're going to be using that electricity at basically a constant rate all the time. Whereas residential users, our use tends to fluctuate throughout the day. We use a lot in the morning when we're getting ready for work, then we're gone during the day, and then we come home in the evening and our use spikes again. So it's harder for the company to provide power to a residential user. That's changed a lot, of course, with COVID, because so many people now are working from home and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you, that's where the utility is coming from.
Jesse, let me apologize. I thought you worked for Entergy. Somebody corrected me on that. But the fact of the matter is, you said the key word, that industry, they want to bring more industry in, which would gentrify the community. Also, with the Cancer Alley, you got many deaths that are occurring, that have occurred. They're not fixing the grid. They're making it worse. So it's Murder Incorporated.
And as we've heard about, Entergy's negligence in maintaining its transmission system and distribution system, which leads to, the numerous outages that we have and prolonged outages, that has real life consequences. And, folks die when that happens. Yeah, these are absolutely critical decisions.
Thank you, Jesse.
Who do we really need to go talk to, Pastor, about that, man? Who do we need to talk with? The government? They're not gonna do anything.
Well, let's talk about that. Let me get these questions, and then hopefully we get to some action items, because we need to force the issue on the fact that it is our transmission lines that Entergy has been very negligent, as Jesse said. And our understanding is that the stark reality is that more people died because of the power outage that Entergy is responsible for than they died because of the effects of Hurricane Ida itself. So that is just absolutely horrific information when we understand that. Sylvia, what's the next question?
Well, Sophie had a question where she asked earlier about what is a kilowatt?
Okay, Sophie, not.
Oh, that was just during Jesse's presentation. He said a kilowatt hour. And I was just wondering, I guess if anybody was also had that question, exactly what that is and what the average usage is versus the usage in New Orleans.
All right, Jesse.
Sure. So a kilowatt hour is the amount of energy it takes to provide a kilowatt of electricity for 1 hour of service. And so that is the unit that your usage is measured in on your bill. The average bill, typically for residential customers is about 1,000 kilowatt hours per month. That is the typical residential average. But as we talked about in New Orleans, because of the condition of our housing stock, because of the fact that we have such a long way to go in terms of energy efficiency and weatherization, our average usage is probably a little higher than that. I really don't know the exact figure, but I would guess that it's probably higher.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Sylvia, what's the next question?
The next question I wanted to ask, the new meters that they just presently changed, and there were meters that were different too as well after Katrina. What was the purpose of those meters? And how do you read it? I mean, just explain to us the difference.
I think, Jesse, maybe that'll be back to you.
You got me stumped. I honestly have not taken a look at the new meters, so I really don't know how to read them. I've heard complaints from other people, though, that they have, found it difficult to read the new meters since they've been put in place.
Thank you. Sophie, I know you and Logan was familiar with this here because y'all kind of warned us about the new meters that they were coming out with, correct?
Yes, just by the time that the meters were actually installed, they were no longer even new meters at that point. But I also can't, without having it directly in front of me, I wouldn't be able to diagnose any of it.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted to ask that question because we just received new meters after Hurricane Katrina. So that's another way of jipping us off. So we'll pay more attention. Thank you. The next one, Ms. Darlene, do you have a question?
I had to laugh. Well, no, more like a statement. The weatherization thing that they talk about, the Entergy Smart weatherization, I've actually signed up for that a couple times and never heard from anybody back about it. And then just now while we were talking on, I was listening to what was going on. I was like, well, just let me go and sign up on a thing. I went to try to sign up for it and the site doesn't even work.
Wow.
I know.
Sophie, you have anything to?
Yeah,
comment?
that's atrocious. I'm so sorry that's happened to you. It's also not that surprising because Entergy does not do a good job of actually taking care of things they're supposed to. Unfortunately, the next step would be to contact the CURO office. That's the City Utility Regulatory Office, and tell them about what you're experiencing. Alliance for Affordable Energy can absolutely be go with you to that, you know, whether it's through email or call. Probably wouldn't want to do it in person nowadays. But you would want to talk to the CURO office and let them know that you're facing that because they interact directly with Entergy.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
The next one is, would any of the panelists like to comment on Together New Orleans' efforts around this issue? Anyone?
Sure. We at the Alliance have been in partnership with Together New Orleans. We are a member organization of Together New Orleans. We've been working closely with Pastor Manning and all the folks at Together New Orleans on this initiative. And we're in full support. This community lighthouse program that they've come up with the idea of having 85 to 100 of these community lighthouses throughout the city, which would serve as cooling and charging stations and distribution hubs in the event of a catastrophic outage. This is a major first step toward true storm resilience. You know, I wanted to mention earlier that the way that we generate and transmit our electricity really has not changed much since the advent of electricity. We, you know, still predominantly rely on large centralized generating units, big power plants that then have to have transmission lines built from them to carry that power to the distant cities and neighborhoods where it's actually needed. But technology has changed so much in the past 150 years since we've started using electricity. And now we can actually generate clean, renewable energy on site, at the point of use. And so we don't have to continue to rely on these antiquated systems. But again, all of this is dependent upon our regulators and the kinds of mandates and requirements that they put on our utility. So this kind of program to create these resilience hubs within neighborhoods, like I said, that's a great start. And hopefully, eventually we can expand that out to the entire neighborhood so that everybody's wired and we can create what are called microgrids in these neighborhoods so that when there are catastrophic outages, such as in the wake of a tropical storm system, each neighborhood can operate independently as an island unto itself. And folks, can stay in their homes.
Thank you, Jesse. We are indeed at this code red moment where we are behind the 8 ball, that we need to press our city council to ensure that we are no longer being regulated by Entergy, but city council is indeed regulating Entergy, as should be the case, but often is not. And so if there's not any candidate that is talking that language, being able to enforce the regulation of Entergy and moving us into a place where we are using renewable energy sources, then they are not the candidate that needs to be holding that seat. I will say that. Sylvia, any other questions?
Yes, sir. Mama Jamila, was your question answered about the energy saving sustainability programs for the community?
I think for the most part, no.
Okay, so that's her question. She'd like to know, are there any potential energy saving sustainable programs that the community can avail themselves of?
I heard us mention the one for weatherization. I can say that, and I see Darlene has left the line. I was and I'll say beneficiary of that program. But the work, there's no accountability. And so much of the work that was done through the program that paid a bunch of money was not up to standard. After issue, calling the company back, calling them back. So we may have some programs, but where's the oversight?
Yes, ma'am.
To make sure that you're getting the good work, real work for the amount of money that's been paid. Also, I heard Dennis mention something about the extortion through the solar programs. What's working? And I know we're going to go more to that, but what's working to help people save money on Entergy?
I would say in terms of Energy Smart, you won't get any argument from us that there is a lot of room for improvement in that program, both in the quality of work that's being performed and the quantity, frankly. I think Sophie mentioned earlier that, they do about 200 homes a year of, fully weatherizing those homes. But just imagine if we did 2,000 homes a year, the impact that would have not only on those individual ratepayers' bills, but on our local economy, because that's, money saved on energy bills is money that can be reinvested into the local economy. It also, as I said earlier, benefits the entire system, because the less stress, the less demand we put on our electric system, the lower our rates will be. The cheapest, form of generation, the cheapest megawatt hour, I always say, is the megawatt hour that you don't have to produce. So if we can save those megawatt hours by, improving the energy efficiency of our appliances, weatherizing our homes, we just need a more robust program, frankly. And again, the city council has an enormous amount of authority in that regard. In terms of solar, what I would say is solar is actually currently the cheapest form of electricity generation. It's much cheaper than fossil fuels and nuclear power. I would say that, in terms of affordability, we do need, quite frankly, incentives, and we need federal money to be put in place to really expand this technology and deploy it the way it needs to be deployed. But I would say the alternative is also unaffordable. The alternative, which is the status quo, I don't think anyone in this room would say that the system that we have currently is affordable for most people. I do think, like I said, that we will have to see some federal action and that sort of thing to really spur this along. But I think, we really don't have much of a choice in terms of making this transition.
All right, Sylvia, any more questions?
Yes, Ms. Ann Myers.
I can ask the question just as quickly as reading it.
All right.
Do any of you know who is working, or is anyone working for a more fair system for those of us who use solar panels? The way this state works is just obscene. It is so unfair against those who have made this attempt. And I was wondering who we might work with and how we might be able to get a stronger voice for those of us who really do believe that rooftop solar panels are part of the answer.
Any panelists?
Yeah, any panelist, anybody.
Sophie, you want to take that?
Sure, yeah. And you're in Orleans Parish, is that correct?
Yes, I am. I'm in a neighborhood that has almost 100% of the houses with solar panels. It's a disadvantaged area with elderly. It's an extremely poor area, and we've been asking City Council to consider the community solar banking, battery banking, because it'd be a great pilot program. It exists other places, and we're not getting anywhere.
Right. I completely hear your frustration. And to echo something that Jesse said earlier, we are a small nonprofit that is trying to advocate for exactly those interests up against a enormous utility with lots of a big discretionary fund. But we are working on the community solar rules and in the community solar docket, as well as the RPS, which is the Renewable Portfolio Standard. Community solar specifically is working on getting solar panels and storage for communities without people having to individually purchase a whole system, so that the community can subscribe to those solar panels. We're really advocating for solar microgrids, renewable energy, especially in areas that tend to lose power. And so if you're welcome to join us. I think the more people that are part of the group, the louder the voices are, the more people that honestly have interests that the city council cares about, as in like large groups that have social media presence or campaign contribution type things. Unfortunately, that's what they listen to. And so we have to really work on building political power in order to get them to listen and make decisions and implement these decisions faster. I'm sorry, the answer isn't more simple.
Thank you for that question, Anne and Sophie, for that answer. We're going to have to leave it there as we move. But what we want to do before everyone gets off the line is to come up with any actions that we want to move towards. As we've heard this presentation, we've heard the issues. We know where we need to go in order that people would be made whole and we would create a more equitable system. With the collective hearts and passions and minds on this call, are there any actions that any of you are suggesting that we would take, with whether it be within our municipality or in our legislature to begin to move more towards a more equitable system? We'd love to hear them at this time. You can put them in the chat.
Pastor, I'm really stimulated by Ann's question. I think that would be a really something really to look into, is choosing some target neighborhoods that we can do something different in and show a different way of doing it. I think that would be really dynamic, and that sounds like her neighborhood would be one good candidate for that. I think that's something to talk with all of our partners about, organizations that are working on this, see what's possible there.
I agree. We need to stop thinking that these micro grids are just some aloof theoretical pipe dream, and we need to see them pop up within the next 2 years. And so we need to hear from candidates and those taking office. Will you ensure that we see these solar communities that are operated through these microgrids within the next 2 years? Sophie, Jesse, Mama Jamila, Deborah, what do y'all think about that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's a matter of us holding, our council members' feet to the fire. As Sophie said, our power lies in our numbers. Like I said before, Entergy has the money, but we have the numbers. They are not a popular company in this city. I think this meeting is proof of that. So, the more that we work together toward a common goal, the more successful we will be. And I will say, I've been working on energy and environmental issues for a long time. And in the wake of Ida, I have seen people's eyes really start to open about the importance of these issues. So I really feel a sense of hope and optimism that I have not felt in quite a while, to be honest, about this issue, because I think so many people are realizing that it's vital to the future habitability of our city.
Absolutely. I'm wondering is it an unreasonable demand that every council district that we would see a microgrid scenario within the first couple of years of each council member's administration?
I think that's an excellent idea, Pastor. We have to do something. You know, we often look at our energy bill as a given. This is the way it has to be. So there has to be more public education around these issues.
That's right.
Discussed it with Entergy, but the public discussion and education about those collective numbers, as you mentioned, those collective numbers. I always say there's more of us than there are of them, but we don't make enough noise collectively and sustained. You know, we get this issue, it's microwave. Today, we're into Entergy. What is it going to be tomorrow? It has to be a sustained movement. And that will only come from us doing a concentrated, each of us talking to someone else, each of us pulling someone else into this fight, because there is a win-win for all of us.
Thank you, Mama
Can I
Jane.
say something, Pastor?
Yes, go
To that
ahead.
as well.
Yes.
Knowing that we have the final day for the election on the 13th, this week should be the week that we start pressing every official, every person that's about to run, and just start hitting them with these energy concepts and concerns and how serious we are about we're not going to stand by and go back to the way it used to be. So we had already proven the fact at Justice and Beyond that there were paid actors that kept us out of meetings. So we even won the case in court behind this. So the thing is, what hurted us is when is going to wake up in this city to know that it's real? When?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sylvia.
This is Deborah Campbell, and my concern is we need to get rid of these monopolies.
Yes.
All of our utility companies, our Cox Cable, you know, that's the only company in the city. So where do you go? Give us another company. Give us a choice. Give us some options. And that's what I think needs to be done. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this meeting is being recorded, so we have all of those actions down. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. I'm going to invite all of you also go to the Together New Orleans website at togetherneworleans.org, doing great work, and we partner with them as well too to see how we can create a new system in New Orleans. And so sign up for the work that they're doing there and be a part of the movement to make a change. What we're going to do now, first, I want to thank Ms. Deborah, Mama Jamila, Jesse, Sophie, and Anitra for being our guest moderator for tonight. Phenomenal job, everyone. We just so much appreciate you and the information that you laid out to us tonight. So thank you so much for being here and giving up your time tonight. Let me ask now, are there any candidates on the line that are running for office that would like about 90 seconds to introduce yourself and to briefly tell us about anything that you'd like to share with us? Any candidates? Brooke or Sylvia, do you see any candidates?
Sean was on, but she must have left.
Okay, no candidates tonight. Our final thing
Can
is,
I just ask a quick question, please?
please.
This is related to concerted efforts. I'm just trying to, my concern is that we have 30 people and we pretty much have that amount of people every meeting. And my concern is how we get the word out beyond the group. I know that each of us can make an effort to contact people that we know, but also the public needs to be educated. And sometimes people can't come to the meetings, but if they have an opportunity to hear what was presented in the meetings, they become a more educated body of people. And that's been my struggle to get the past meetings when you've had these debates between politicians who are running for office and all of that. We need the education.
Yeah, what we often try to do is follow up more than once. And so we will return, number one, we'll return back to this issue again and do a similar presentation, but also we hope to make the recording available so that people can pass on the recording. The person that had been doing that for us for Justice and Beyond was not able to do it for the last several months, but hopefully this recording will be able to be shared on our next newsletter so that people will be able to pass it on to somebody else so they can hear the information.
Right, I wanted to depend on those recordings to choose the politician that I would vote for. So that's, but I understand if you only have one person and they're not able to do it, I understand the difficulty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just offer too that if folks have community groups or churches or anybody that is an audience that you want someone to come and talk to about these issues, hit me up, because I will go wherever in the city and talk to anybody about it. So my email is Jesse, Jesse at all4energy.org. I'll put it in the chat too. And if you ever want somebody to come, rile people up about Entergy, I'm your man.
All right. Thank you, Jesse, for that. And maybe all of our panelists too, if you would like to put your contact information in the chat, that would be helpful as well too. Any other, now at this time, we want to move towards any announcements or any actions that this group wants to make everyone else aware of.
I got one. Linda Parker Brown was down at the courthouse today for the deliberations on Jack Strain. And so what's going on now is we're waiting on a sentencing date. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Any other announcements? All right, very good. Please do share about Justice and Beyond, and we can only do what we can also to express to our network, that is each of your networks, the importance of being on these very informative and call to action meetings that we have. We need your help in doing outreach. This platform limits us, and soon we'll hope to be back together again in person, and that'll be another set of logistics that we'll have to work through as well too, because we don't want to isolate those that are still only able to join by Zoom. But please continue to share with others the invitations that we send out to you on these meetings. For now, let's close tonight with the word of prayer as we adjourn this meeting. Mama J, would you close us in prayer? She's still there?
Pastor, before
yes.
Mama Jamila close, Miss Michonne Copeland just put in the chat, she's having a free fish fry tomorrow by Carmen's Bar in the Lower 9, 5119 St. Claude at 3:30 p.m. And she's only asking for small donations.
Very good. Thank you for that. Is Mama J still on?
I'm trying to see now. Let's see.
All right, let's close in prayer. Sylvia, closes in prayer, please.
Amen.